Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and other gig economies have had a minor victory when it comes to trying to be exempt from AB5 and getting an approval for the California ballot measure. And that's what we're talking about right now. Hey everyone, Chris here from Real Rideshare Stories. If you're new to the channel and you're looking for different things within the rideshare industry, whether it's updates to what's going on, news, tips and tricks for passengers and drivers, or what happens on real rideshare rides, start now by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Also make sure to check the description below for other helpful information and tips. So the debate whether drivers are independent contractors or employees are continuing to go further and further. And Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and some other companies have actually been able to claim a small victory when it comes to the ballot initiative that they are trying to push for, because it has been approved and it will be on November's ballot when it comes to California and trying to be exempt from AB5. So it would null and void AB5 and essentially let Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and some other gig companies be able to operate outside AB5. And some people are saying it's a good deal, other people are saying it's a bad deal. And there's a lot of red tape and a lot of details that drivers should know, because they're the ones who are going to have to end up voting for this in November, especially the people in California. But when it comes to the rest of the country, it could have some impacts when it comes to other states like New York and a few others that are looking at AB5-like legislation and could potentially see something like that happening in their own state. This article right here is from the Sacramento Bee. A link will be in the description below, so if you want to check this out, you can. And it's titled Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash Initiative Seeking Labor Law Exemptions Head to California Voters. So it says, an expensive ballot measure championed by Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash to exempt their drivers from a new California law that requires companies to give benefits to more workers qualified Friday for the November election. So this was just this past week when it had happened. The initiative promises to raise compensation for ride-hailing and delivery drivers by requiring companies to pay them above minimum wage plus 30 cents per mile, according to the coalition. It would also mandate healthcare coverage for drivers who work at least 15 hours per week and provide insurance for on-the-job injuries. Now, that is a very brief overview of what it really looks like. There is a 24-page paper, PDF file that you can actually look up and see exactly how these minimum wage plus this 30 cents per mile, how the healthcare coverage, all of that's going to look out, because there's a lot more details than what it says right there. And you really should know what you're voting for when it comes to this. That looks good right there, but again, there's a lot of details behind it that you may not really know. So the coalition was required to collect 623,212 signatures, or 5% of the total votes cast for the governor in the 2018 election, which it had accomplished by February. The campaign was born in response to a landmark law called Assembly Bill 5, signed by Gavin Newsom in September, that limits, in most cases, an employer's ability to use independent contractors. Instead, the law requires these workers be treated as employees with benefits. So advocates for the law took aim at gig companies in the ride-sharing and meal delivery sector. AB5 supporters credit the law to providing overdue relief for low-wage workers, but the restrictions have prompted lawsuits by truckers and freelancers who say it's impaired their livelihoods. A coalition behind the initiative called Protect App-Based Drivers and Services trumpeted the ballot qualification in a press release late Friday, including statements from drivers who said they worry about losing income, and other advocates who said gig work will be important in the state's economic recovery from the coronavirus outbreak. App-based driving is under threat. That's why we need this ballot measure to pass, to end the uncertainty and make sure people maintain the ability to earn money on their terms when their schedules allow, even after this pandemic has passed, said Tacoy Porter, president of Sacramento's chapter of civil rights group National Action Network. Uber, Lyft, and DoorDash pledged in October when they unveiled their ballot campaign to fight the law, have raised more than $100 million on this effort. And you're going to see over the next few months ramping up a lot of trying to push for this initiative or vote no when it comes to the state. So you're going to see a lot of that when it comes to California. When you start seeing commercials or anything like this, or when you start seeing emails, at least send them to me and let me know for anybody who is in California, because this is where it's going to be the battleground state. But both Newsom and Xavier Becerra have also promised to uphold the law. Newsom's budget proposal includes more than $20 million to enforce AB5, and Becerra has launched a lawsuit against Uber and Lyft, which was just filed a couple weeks ago. The law's author, Assemblywoman Lorena Gonzalez, is working this year to refine it through a new bill that would allow for certain exemptions, among others, for journalists and musicians. She's doubled down, however, on tech companies, which she says refuse to organize their business models at the cost of providing workers a livable wage. Ride-hailing alliances in support of the law have also initiated their own campaign against the ballot initiative, hailing it as a way for companies to continue violating the law and refusing to protect drivers. This attempt by Uber and Lyft to buy their way out of providing basic protections to their own workers and shift the burden to taxpayers isn't going to fly, said Art Pulaski, Executive Secretary Treasurer for the California Labor Federation. We're confident voters will reject this cynical measure and ensure these multi-billion-dollar companies to play by the same rules as all other law-abiding businesses. And then going to another link, this is California Secretary of State Alex Padilla. I'm not sure exactly how you say that. But if you want to see what the statewide initiative measures are and actually see what it says, you can scroll down right here to the bottom where it says changes employment classification rules for app-based transportation and delivery drivers initiative statute. So it gives you some of the information there, and it says it establishes different criteria for determining whether app-based transportation, rideshare, and delivery drivers are employees or independent contractors. Independent contractors are not entitled to certain state law protections afforded employees, including minimum wage, overtime, unemployment insurance, and workers' comp. Instead, companies with independent contractor drivers will be required to provide specified alternative benefits, including minimum compensation and healthcare subsidies based on engaged driving time, vehicle insurance, safety training, and sexual harassment policies. Restricts local regulation of app-based drivers, criminalizes impersonation of such drivers, requires background checks, summary of estimate by legislative analyst and director of finance and fiscal impact on state and local governments, increases in state personal income tax revenue of an unknown amount. And then if you want to see the actual 24 pages of what this ballot measure will look like, including all the different benefits and how it's going to look when it comes to this minimum compensation, this healthcare subsidy based on engaged driving time, which is, again, when you actually have somebody in the car. So that's engaged driving time. So you need to know what it's actually going to look like. And if you want to see that 24-page paper, which is a PDF, it's this link right here, which says 19-0026A1, and it will pop up. The first 3 pages are really just a couple of signatures. This right here is where it begins on page 4, so it's really only 21 pages long. And at the end, there's a lot of definitions defining a lot of the different things, like engaged time, when it comes to what that means, because if you read through it and see. So this is exactly what it's going to look like. And again, like I said, there is a lot of information on here. And if you want to check it out, they're going to be talking about what the earnings guarantee is, so they can break it down for you a lot more. So you can see exactly what it's going to look like. And it's going to give you what this net earnings floor means and how they're going to actually give it. So for all engaged time, which means when you actually have somebody in your vehicle, it doesn't count for the dead time where you don't have somebody in the car when you're waiting for a ride, or even going for a pickup, it's talking about for engaged time, the sum of 120% of the applicable minimum wage for that engaged time. So again, it's very specific when it will actually be counting. And then this per mile compensation for vehicle expenses, and the total numbers of engaged miles, again, engaged miles when you actually have a person in the vehicle, not when you're driving around aimlessly trying to get a ride like some drivers out there do, or if you are trying to go to a ride, or even going from the last ride back home or to work or whatever it might be. So this is going to give you a lot of details. I am thinking about doing a live stream on this and reading it line by line so people can actually see exactly what it's going to look like for people in California. And again, this is something that could affect other states like New York. But again, if you want to check any of those links out, they will all be in the description below, so you can check that out. And I highly, highly suggest reading through that 24-page PDF file, because that is going to be the exact ballot initiative that they are trying to push. And you can see, kind of like I said, that little sneakiness where all the details are exposed right there. And then you can also see the difference of what they're going to try to push out and say, oh, we're going to give you above minimum wage compensation. Oh, we're going to give you mileage rate compensation for things like your vehicle and gas and different expenses. So that's all going to be built in. But again, it's only during engaged time. So like I said, I highly recommend reading that, and I'll probably do a live stream reading through that so we can kind of discuss it a little bit further. And anybody who may have any questions on that, we can kind of work together to understand exactly what that means. Now, what's your thoughts on this? Do you like this ballot initiative? Do you think that it's going to be beneficial to make sure that AB5 gets nullified so it can not go to your state if you're not in California? Drivers in California, what are your thoughts? Because again, you guys are kind of the guinea pigs for this, because unfortunately, it's the state versus the company with drivers as pawns. And as we should really know and have the knowledge on, especially when it comes to November's ballot, you should really know what you're going to be voting for, what it's going to look like, what Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, and some of these other companies are really trying to push, as well as what the state's agenda is when it comes to enforcing AB5 and what they're really looking at. Is it really just for the tax revenue that they're going to be making, or is it in drivers' best interest? The only people who are really going to know is the driver itself, and they're going to kind of be in one of these three aspects. Remain independent contractor as it is, foregoing AB5 altogether, something in between where they're talking about this ballot initiative, or being an employee. So yeah, comment below and let me know your thoughts on all this. Now, that's the end of this video. As more updates do evolve on this, I will make some more updates. And again, I will probably read out that 24-page paper. It's going to be long. It's going to probably be boring, but it's going to have all the details in there, exactly what Uber and Lyft are trying to do when it comes to how they're going to compensate drivers, what is going to look like, how they differentiate everything, and all the details in between. Because it is a little bit sneaky, at least on my opinion. I did read through that. So yeah, it is pretty crazy nonetheless. But make sure you subscribe and ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Also, make sure to check the description below for any other helpful information and tips. And as always, never drink and drive. Always tip your drivers, your delivery drivers, and your shoppers. And we'll see you next time.